Live now. There's always that little bit of a delay between clicking the button and going live on YouTube. Welcome back to episode 27. Welcome to episode 27 of WAYLT. What are you listening to? Good to see everyone. It's going to be a great show tonight. I can feel it in my bones. I'm excited about tonight's show. Daniel's back again. Good to see you, Daniel.
Yeah, you too.
Derik's here for the first time. Thanks for coming on, Derik. Really appreciate it.
It's happening. My pleasure.
Thanks, mate. The old warhorse, Tony.
Capital old.
The warhorse. The workhorse.
Where's Derik, how old are you?
How old am I?
Yeah.
48.
48. Okay, so I got you by a couple of years. And Daniel, did I ask last time? I can't remember how old you are.
I am 43.
That's great. You couldn't remember.
I'm the baby.
So we got the old side of the screen here and the younger side.
Yeah. There'll be a clear difference between this side and that side.
One of your toupee is a little.
Yeah. At least one of us has got some follicles. All right, let me do the housekeeping. I only do this at the beginning of the show. Where are we? Here we go. So everybody watching, you know what to do. That's the only time I'll do this. We're going to get on with the show. So like and subscribe. That's that done with. Let's see if the chat's open. Jesus, there it is. We got some people in the chat already. Oh, Mem, how you doing, mate? Mem from Exuma is with us. Hey, Mem, how you doing? And Clifford from Baltimore. Clifford's here. So the chat's open. So if you've got any comments or questions, put them in the chat. If we forget something, remind us what we're supposed to be talking about, because we sometimes forget things in our elderly age. There you go. There you go.
Robert, thank you so much.
All right.
There goes all the discounts that all the discounts that Robert gets at the shopper. They're gone now.
All right.
Exposing my tater tot secrets.
I knew that. All right, shall we get things going? As usual, we each got 5 records we picked out that we've been listening to. I'm really excited for everyone's choices tonight. I'll do one. We'll go around 5 times. We'll have a good time talking about 20 or maybe more if someone cheats, as I might do. 20 or more great records. So let's get started. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.
Kanpai.
Kanpai to you too. So
Hi.
there we go. All right. If regular viewers of the show will kind of know that I've been doing my kind of short, sharp shock to kick off the show and kind of warm myself up, get into the flow of things. But I'm not gonna do it this week because I've got a few hardcore records in my stack this week. So I'm gonna go the opposite direction, like whatever the opposite of short, sharp shock is. I know, like a long, blunt, relief or whatever. I don't know, so. No short, sharp shock. I'm going with a Doom record. So this is for all you Doomers out there. American Doom band. It was like a COVID project, I think, between some guys. It was tape only. And then Svart Records from Finland picked up on it and put it out as kind of a limited edition vinyl thing. I'm talking about this thing. Great name for a Doom band. Solemn Lament is the name of the band. And there's some quite well-known characters in this band, also from the hardcore scene. Let's check this out. So who we got? Justin Detour is the drummer on this, from the Rival Mob and Mind Eraser and then Innumerable Forms. And then Magic Circle and Dream Unending and Sumaland and tons of bands. But, it's him and Phil Swanson, who was the singer of Summerlands. So you kind of know what you're going to get when you hear those names. Some really classy, classic traditional Doom. Really well done. It kind of mixes old European classic Doom with classic American Doom. And it's short too. So if you don't like, a lot of these bands put out like triple LPs that are like 3 hours long. This is it's 4 songs. It's not like an EP. So it's a nice bite-sized chunk of doom. I kind of like the black and white aesthetic to it. There's like no like pixelated pixies or like Arnold Schwarzenegger with a big sword on the front. It's like
very very classy font.
Classy font.
Feeling very good about that font. That's awesome.
Nice matte finish.
Matte finish, black and white, 4 songs, just really nice, classic doom from guys that kind of came from the hardcore punk scene. So great record.
Yeah.
Who put that one out, Mike?
Well, it was originally tape on Sword Worship, like self-released, and then like Smart Records from Finland.
Oh yeah, Smart. Okay, yeah.
Yes, picked it up and put it out, kind of limited edition run on vinyl, but really, really good. And Phil Swanson's a singer. There's no like guttural growls. He's a good singer. Not too operatic. He's like right in the pocket. It's easy on the ears. So. Great record. So that's my opposite of a short, sharp shock. Tonight. Solemn Lament. There you go.
Cool.
That's my first pick of the day. I think Mem has a comment on this. Oh yeah. I didn't actually. Mem says he didn't know. There's some other guys in this band too that were from the hardcore scene too, but I guess those 2 guys are the main members of the band.
Yeah, I had not heard of that one, so that's awesome. I'll definitely check that out.
It passed me by too. It just kind of came up at random when I was looking for something else. It kind of came up as like a recommendation kind of thing. So, yeah.
I feel like that crew of people, whenever they do a band, it's very meticulous. Like they sort of have an aesthetic and a style that they're going for, and it's picture perfect.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I think it might have got overlooked by like Sumalan's that album coming out, that kind of stuff. Even though like Phil Swanson he's out of that band now, right? He's only on the first record, but that's like the bigger kind of release right now. These 2.
What is that band like? We have their records at the store, but I haven't listened to them.
It's like fantasy, like doom metal, like not too dissimilar to Solemn Lament. Really, more epic, maybe more like heavy metal than this band. But I love them. They're great. Yes.
Nice.
So there you go. All right, Daniel, what's your first pick of the day?
Yeah, I think you said you were doing the opposite. Start slow. I was going to do the standard and start with a ripper. So I think this one might be a scoop. Hopefully, it's okay to share it. But this is called Bloody Flag. It's not out yet. But two of my bandmates, and they're also employees at Star State. They run this label called Bunker Punks, and this is one of their upcoming releases. But Bloody Flag is basically Chris Ulsh, from I don't know, millions of bands, Power Trip and Taylor's, Devil Master now. This is him playing all the instruments, and I think it's heavily inspired by like 2000s era Disclose. So it's very, very blown out, very discharged with like, lots of those sort of like epic bone solos where,
nice.
Y reprise style, just like, and for me, like Chris Ulsh is like just one of my absolute favorite musicians. I just love the sound of him playing in any band, whether it's drums or guitar or anything. And, it's raw, it's nasty. And I think there are also, so in addition to Chris playing all the instruments on the sort of Disclose inspired noisy hardcore songs, there's a bunch of like harsh noise bits on it. So, and I think those are done by Chris from Warthog. And so I think that's kind of a nod to Kawakami's Goat Worshipper thing and kind of bringing that in with the Disclose thing. But man, this tape is killer. Like it's just a ripper from start to finish. I think people are gonna go nuts when Bunker Punks drops this. Yeah.
Is it going to be tape only, or is it going to be?
Yeah, I think so. I think, Chris has so many projects. I like have trouble keeping track of them all because there's like this and Kinetic Orbital Strike. One of them, I think there might be 2 Burning Flag releases dropping at once, like a tape and a record, but I might be confusing that with Kinetic Orbital Strike. But I think this release is just going to be a tape on Bunker Punks.
All right.
Yeah.
You know what's really into Devilmouth? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying it's a nice tape. It's pro duplicated and great sound and everything.
I was gonna say, like, who's really into Devil Masters, Andre 3000, Mountcast.
Really?
Yep. Yeah, he was filming something and he spent some time in Philly and he went to a Crush show and bought a bunch of merch. And my bandmate Ian was in this band, ASD, and they played. He was just like super sincere and energetic, and yeah.
Cool.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he knew about Devil Master.
Yeah, that's big. I know they also, the Devil Master opened for My Chemical Romance, like, at a giant stadium. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Something about them.
Wow.
I love, Chris just plays on the new Devil Master album. And I feel like they kind of changed their style a little bit for that new one. And I love that album. I go back to it all the time.
We're talking about Devil Master?
Yeah.
I might bring them up in my next at some point in the show. They might get a mention. Good.
Oh, there's Jeff.
There you go.
Jeff's half of Bunker Punks chiming in.
I always wondered who it was because he uses his very difficult to say name.
Yeah,
when he's on here, so it's like
you should have Jeff on as a guest.
All right, I'll get onto him. Yeah, let's get him on. Jeff, come on. Not now. It's another time.
Split the screen, one more in the middle.
There you go.
But yeah,
That's
so
nice.
he says second tape on Roach Leg.
Roach Leg.
Yeah,
cool.
Just a good home for it.
Nice. All right.
Clock walls.
Yep, Derik, you're up
All right.
next. Your first choice of the day.
All right, starting with a big one.
Oh,
Wretched. La tua morte non aspetta. Yes. It's yes. Let's see. For this is, over the pandemic I got dipped into some Italian hardcore, and I had I didn't realize I bought the After Your Brain, the Raw Power, and when I was in what's that shop in Columbus, Ohio, where Jimmy Turry works.
Used Kids?
Yeah, Used Kids. Yeah, and I got these two. Well, this is and I thought it was the UK pressing, but it's different. So the same, right? I forgot I already had it. Different cover.
different cover, right? Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is a pretty hideous cover, but I came up in the 90s and we're used to it. But yeah, this is just, I love how there's like death rock elements, and it's just like so earnest. And the lyric sheet is, I gotta show you, it's also very 90s, which is, it's so illegible, not just because it's in Italian, but oh man, you can see this. It's just so tiny and compressed, and but I translated. I use like the Google app and try to read it, and it reads like a crash record in a way. It's just very. Look at this thing. It's like single spaced bananas. Like I just went up a prescription, and still unreal. But yeah, just so sincere, so like they lived it. Like they would put out their own records. They were just very DIY and like set the tone for that. And yeah, oh man, I love this record so much. And it, you ever hear this band from New York, Subversive Right?
They're great. Yeah.
They kind of brought up, especially there's what's the track? It starts out with this long kind of, emotive kind of classical thing, and it reminds me of how the Subversive Right LP starts. But kind of goes into that really intense, fast part. So yeah, love it.
Yeah.
And,
The big question though is, do you have the poster that came with that?
no, there's no poster.
Yeah, that Wretched record, it came with this like tour poster that's one of the coolest punk posters I've ever seen. Yeah, it's this like 2-color giant thing. It's super rare.
I've seen it in person. A friend of mine has that poster, but I've never been able to pry it from there.
Yeah. Asman at Sorry State has one.
It's like
we always talk about reprinting them and just like throw them in with orders just so kind of everybody can have one. Like we even did a high res scan of it, but maybe one day.
That's cool. If anyone's holding a Wretched poster, let us know in the comments. Because I don't have one either. It's not in my copy. But our friend James said he said it's the best Wretched record. I personally agree. I don't know about you guys, but
to me, it's like Wretched has kind of like the two eras. You know, it's hard to say which one's better because the early stuff is so crazy, you know, and then they really tighten up on that latter stuff when they get like the chorus on the guitar and that kind of death rock influence. I love both the eras of the band, but it's hard to choose for me.
And they never went like heavy rock or like heavy metal like a lot of the Italian bands from that era did, like Negazione and like Impact and Crashbox went kind of very metal. A lot of those bands kind of went they broke up or they went like hard rock or metal, but Wretched didn't.
I found like a Ziploc with old patches, and one of them I realized that like just before I came on that so like I sewed them on these.
Hell yeah.
And I drew that with a marker when I was like 17, 18.
Cool.
Yeah. I don't, sometimes you get into these, like you buy like Bad Religion, Dead Kennedys, and then some, especially on it.
That's amazing.
That's great. That Raw Power record, definitely no slouch either. I saw them in the like 98 maybe. Like they did. I mean, I obviously didn't see them any kind of classic era time. I'm not old enough to have seen that. But I saw them. They did a US tour in like 98, I think, or 99 or something like that. And yeah, they were just insane. I mean, that's well after the, classic era or whatever. They still like completely destroyed when that US tour. They might even have come back even after that at certain points. I'm not sure. But right around 98 or whatever, I saw them here in Baltimore, and it was wild. Yeah, they were great. So
I was talking to Nate Wilson yesterday, and he said he saw them in, I think it was 86.
Yeah,
farm in the Bay Area, and so you just wouldn't believe it. There was like 1,000 kids in there, just so fucking good. Like,
I have a flyer for them playing in Baltimore, probably that 86 tour, and it's DRI. It's like Raw Power DRI, I think. It's hiding in a box over there somewhere, but that would have been insane to have seen. But yeah, in 1986, I was literally seeing Yngwie Malmsteen open for Iron Maiden. So
nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
No Raw Power or DRI for me at that point in my life at all.
I saw Raw Power in I think 2008 when I was living in London, and it's after the original guitarist Giuseppe passed away, which to me he's such a big part of the sound. But they had a really good guitarist, but they played, and it was like they played maybe 10 or 15 minutes of just like rippers and shredded, and then there was a middle part of the set where they played kind of later stuff, including a Nirvana cover.
I was going to mention about the Nirvana cover.
And then they went back and played a bunch of older tracks at the end.
Whoa. That was a real like mind blow. I was like, Raw Power like doing a Nirvana cover in their set now, like,
especially at the time, because I feel like Nirvana's like always been kind of like legendary, but I think I don't know. 2008 was a weird time. It was very
right. It was like this. It was kind of gutsy. I want to say it's a gutsy decision to put that in the set list. But
I think they first came over in '84, and they played with Dead Kennedys. And when I heard like they got signed right away, and that first record they did just destroyed.
Yeah, because they recorded that with Paul Mahern, right? Or not the first record, but Screams from the Gutter
from the Zero Boys, right?
Yeah. I think they did that on one of the tours.
Nice.
Yes, sir.
That's a great first pick. Good conversation. It's good when records kind of like spark a nice conversation, especially about that poster, which Eric Good is like saying that Daniel needs to reprint that.
Take it.
And Nate Wilson, no, I haven't been working out. but thanks for saying so. Thanks for saying so. How many beers have you had tonight, Nate? Yeah, it's the rolled up retro Pink Floyd t-shirt. It's given the illusion. Me having been to the gym. All right, let's move on. Tony, what's your first pick of the day?
All right. So yeah, I was digging through the piles of stuff that's been broken out, and I've been listening to a bunch of stuff that, from a style of music that, I was pulling out a bunch of stuff that I listened to as it was released when I worked at Reptilian in the 90s. So kind of like 95 to 2005 era stuff. And I was really thinking about, that store, and my boss was just super focused on garage rock, more than anything. And there was stuff at the time where I was just like, man, this is not for me. I can't fuck with this. And then there's other things that I kind of did like at the time, but then it just didn't hold up or whatever. Right. And I was trying to really narrow out and pull some records that, I was turned on to at the time, and I really liked them, and then they still hold up for me. So I have this one here. Let's see what we can do. My lighting is acting weird, but anyway, the Makers. This record, Hunger. After this, they kind of turned into kind of like a little more of a sleazy kind of glam direction. They had a record after this called Psychopathia Sexualis, and it's okay. And then before this, it's a little more ramshackle. But this record, at least for me anyway, is like this sweet spot where it's just really raw garage rock. But there's definitely it sounds weird to say it, but kind of like a kind of violent punk undertone kind of happening there. I think the reputation at the time was kind of being a really antagonistic and almost violent live band, kind of on the same vein as the Dwarves maybe would play. I saw them when they played on this when this record came out, and yeah, they seemed incredibly antisocial and very very mean to the crowd kind of vibe. But I wanted to see if this one still held up or whatever, and it really does. It's really stripped down. It's I wouldn't say that it's a catchy record, but it's more catchy than this style of music, of this kind of estrus, you know what I mean? When I think of other bands in estrus world of this time period, shit, none of them are coming to mind, but that might be because they're not very catchy. There you go. Some of the more I can't even think of any other. When I think of estrus, I normally think of either the Makers or Manor Astroman, which is totally separate thing. But yeah, it's not it's a super catchy record, but it's catchier than a lot of those other bands. And it's not even really that fast, but it's faster than those bands also. And yeah, it has this really really nihilistic, kind of violent, kind of underlying thing going on with it that is it's just killer. And the artwork is great, and they're absolutely, for 1990, I don't know what year, 97 is when this one came out. There this insane haircut happening here, just all kind of perfect. So anyway, yeah, I've been playing this one a lot, and I hadn't broken it out in a really long time, and I was wondering if it was gonna kind of hang in there for me, but it did. So
that's one of those bands from the era that I've never really delved into. Maybe I should.
There's a bunch of singles and some albums. I mean, they, like I said, again, this is probably the pinnacle of their pure punk garage rock vibe. Oh yeah, yep. Jaime did do some stuff for one of the later ones. After this, yeah, that Psychopathia Sexualis record is okay. It's just again glamier, maybe sleazier and glamier. But then after that, it just kind of falls off for me. It's just kind of whatever. But if I need to own one of them, which is I do, is this one. So yeah, nice. But still holding up for me. So
cool. I feel like Disunion has that on the shelf right now. Is that a 10-inch or is that an LP?
It's a 12-inch. Yeah.
Okay.
And I feel there at Disunion, it's literally probably 600 yen, 500 yen.
It was. It's 680 yen. Good guess.
Yeah. Estrus had a huge fire. The Estrus warehouse burned down sometime in the early 2000s, I think, maybe. And when that happened, don't quote me, I think that was the end of the label. And I think that nothing ever got repressed through Estrus after that. Like, so all those records, you know, or that's why, yeah, some of those records are somewhat expensive in the States or whatever, because I don't think any of them ever got a repress. So
All right.
Yeah, I remember checking that band out too when like I was a teenager and reading Maximum Rock and Roll, and they were similarly just like really steeped in the whole garage rock thing that was happening. And you know, I'd check it out and I'd be like, this is cool, but I'm also 16 and just want to listen to my, you know, like I remember having a Maker's record and liking it okay, but yeah, it sounds interesting.
It was interesting for me because I was coming from more like straight edge hardcore, power violence, and like pop punk and just other things like that. And then getting a job and working at Reptilian. And then, you know, Chris, my boss, just being like, well, fuck all that shit. Here's the Stooges. Here's the Makers. Here's, again, you know what I mean? Here's Unsane. Here's the Action Swingers. So then I was like kind of, you know, heavily indoctrinated for, you know, the years that I was there. And yeah, so that kind of like, you know, I'd still listen to all the things that I was listening to, but, you know, it gave me that a little bit of a, you know, insight into the garage world that I probably, you know, if I hadn't worked there, I probably would have just just been like, oh, this is cool. But like, you know, I'm just going to go listen to DRI now or something else, you know, but being in that world and like really listening to those records all the time kind of gave me an appreciation for them. And then seeing those bands, you know, seeing them play live and stuff helped also. So.
Yeah, I remember those bands would play, but it was like at the time there's like I lived in Richmond and it was like an all ages scene and a late night bar scene, and that the late night bar scene was not accessible to a young person. So I
was mostly, you know, enjoying and going to all ages shows, but Baltimore, you know what I mean? Baltimore's always just been more of a rock, garage rock, sleaze rock town. It just always has been. So, you know, and by the time that record was coming out, I was probably like 27 or something, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So for me, I was already going to those, you know, like nerdy straight edge kid going to see the Super Suckers and fucking Glucifer play together. Whatever. That was kind of like I was definitely living in both worlds.
Glucifer's a good one. That's
one foot in each world, 100%. So
cool. I can see you singing for a band like that, doing splits.
Don't encourage him.
Artie Philly is the man that can do both of those things.
All right.
Yeah, Artie Philly, if he's out there, he's the one that can be in Indecision and then also be in what was that other band? The
Celebrity Murders.
What's that?
Celebrity Murders. The Shemps.
Thank you. Yeah, he's the man that can do both of those things like incredibly well.
Yeah,
good old auntie.
At a Shemp show wearing a half shirt with it's like an 80s Corvette or something like that. It's like a half shirt. But
I watched the Shemps play. And Artie took the microphone and put it into his pants, deep into his butt crack, you know, but kind of like behind his back. Like I was behind him and then there's people in front of him or whatever. So I can see him like really getting the microphone in his butt, like really getting it gross, nice and sweaty. And then pulling it out and then leaning into the people in the front of the crowd and like putting it in their face. Yeah, classic. Classic.
I'll remind him of that next time he's going to come on the show again in a few weeks. I'll remind him of that.
He's the belle of the ball, even when he's not here.
All right, let's move on to round two. I've got a new record. Actually, I've got two new records, like two in a row, which is good. Good to have some new records to show. And actually, I just realized when I was listening to this record this week, Daniel put it out.
Oh.
And it wasn't planned that way, swear to God. But here we go. It's on Sorry State Records. The name Devil Master came up already in conversation. This is a band that's kind of mining, you could say, like similar territory to Devil Master. It's a face melter of a record. If you love Devil Master and metal punk and all that kind of stuff, you're going to love this one because it's amazing.
Oh, shit. I was just thinking about them.
Zorn.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun.
I mean, the live picture, the
That's what it's like seeing them.
Yeah,
that artwork on the front also perfect. High school, like at the high end of High School Notebook.
Yeah, it was the one guy who was
yeah, so some inside baseball about the artwork.
There you go. Nice.
Cassidy from Devil Master was going to do the artwork and got as far as making like a really detailed sketch, and it looked amazing, and it had a definite like fantasy metal vibe. Like I think that it looked like the logo was said Zorn like in carved ice, and it was like this mountain scene, and I was like, oh, that would have been so cool. But yeah, it didn't come together in time. But High School Notebook is a good vibe for it.
For the better end of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
when I think about High School Notebook art, the lower end of it is the Hallows Eve LP.
Oh yeah.
The Hallows Eve LP is like kind of like the lower end of it, and this is like towards
high end.
Yeah. I love those like old metal covers. Like you know that band Steel Warriors? Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that one.
They have 2 records, I think, but man, some great, just really anatomically incorrect. Like
I wish I'm not going to go away to try to find the cassette because I can't remember the name of the band. Somebody here might, but I have a cassette. I've seen it on vinyl too, which is even more ridiculous since the art was larger. But it's like a tree stump with an axe in it, and then there's all these human heads, like somebody decapitated these people, but the human heads are like this, and like the act, it's just so it's just so wrong, like but so right. It's amazing. Maybe somebody out there remembers. It's not Sacrifice, but it's like something in that vein. Oh God. Anyway,
I was going to mention there was like a German like band right from the 90s called Zorn. That Bremen style, like emo violence.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I have.
Yanni says it means anger. I didn't know, but Zorn means
in what
anger.
Language?
In German, I assume.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. The band is, I think, they're named after a Star Trek character, like Commander Zorn from Boys to Farpoint, the first Next Generation episode.
Nice. I was thinking like John too, right? John Zorn is
I don't know if they know about John Zorn. I could be wrong, but
it was funny though because I was like thinking like, okay, I got to talk about this record a little bit. I've been playing it to death, and
it's
definite like Devil Master stuff. They're a Philly band, right? From Philly, and so I was kind of looking it up, and of course, lo and behold, what do I find? I find the promo blurb about this record, which I'm assuming was written by you, Daniel.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was like, I copied and pasted it, and I was going to read it out, but I won't. But it's really good, though. It's so well written. It's like,
Thank you.
Yeah. Should I read a little bit of it? It's like, I don't know. Actually,
you use that PhD for something.
Yeah.
This brings to mind something I've talked about to Tony. This is a denim jacket I had when I from '88, 14, and it's got a Keeper of the Seven Keys Part 2.
Love it.
Amazing.
It's like the cool older girl who painted it didn't finish it, and so my mom touched it up a little bit. It was 14, but yeah, it's like an oil painted. It's like an inch thick.
I love it.
It's so sick.
Bring out big guns.
Derek, I think we talked about that because I saw Halloween on the first Keeper of the Seven, just the Keeper of the Seven Keys tour in '87 with Armored Saint and Grim Reaper, and one of my most wanted as a slavish T-shirt collector, I had that Keeper of the Seven Keys 3/4 black sleeves, white shirt with the artwork for Keeper of the Seven Keys, like huge on the front. I had that from that tour, but it was one that just got lost in the years. So any Halloween thing that I see, I'm always feeling good about Halloween. Love them so much.
I did not expect this record to spawn like a conversation about Halloween. This is why we love this show.
It's not really the same style of music at all.
It's that demon with the handlebar mustache. That ominous snowman mixed with Hal from Negative Approach.
Yeah. I want to see this band live. I hope they come to Japan. I don't think they could get away with doing this though in many venues in Japan, but I think people would love them in Japan, right? This band.
Yeah.
Well, I think, did you buy that at Revenge?
I did, yes.
Yeah, because I think Jackie is a big fan.
He is, he said he loves this. Like he said, this record and the Destruct album are his like two recent favorites.
Yeah, that's awesome.
They're fun, like theatrical, but they don't take themselves too seriously.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I won't read it. I did copy and paste it, but go and like if you look this record up, you'll find like Daniel's description of this record, and it's very, very well written. So.
Yeah, I'm going to get it.
Fair play to you for that. But what any information about this record, Daniel, that you can tell the viewers that I don't know about, or about the band or about the record?
Yeah.
Or
I don't know. I mean, they're great bands. Like I feel like they tour regularly and come through North Carolina a lot, and like so I kind of knew how great they were live a long time ago, and it took some time, I think, for their recordings to catch up with how good they were. Okay. And then they put out this tape called Hardcore Zorn, and I was just like, okay, now you've made a record that's like as good as your live show. And so we put that out on a 7-inch, and then have kept working with them. But yeah, they're great, and they it's funny. They're not like the singer Eric. I think he's kind of like I don't know, the driving force in the band, at least like in terms of like doing all the band stuff. And I don't think he's like particularly interested in hardcore, but some of the other members are. Like one of the guitar players is Now, that plays in Poison Ruin and Ice D10, and I think he's very like steeped in hardcore, and I think that creates a lot of like interesting tension in their music, that some of the music is coming from this very non-hardcore place, but it seems like they almost always play hardcore gigs, and so have become really adept at bringing that kind of like energy and excitement. And then the music still has this sort of like glam undercurrent running through it that makes it really strong from like a songwriting standpoint.
I'm gonna bring up the C word. Catchy. It's catchy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Even though it's very vicious and
the riffs. I find myself humming the riffs all the time. Yeah.
It's a great record. It's going to make my top 10 of the year.
Awesome.
For sure. Unless you put out anything better, which I'm sure could happen.
We'll try.
All right.
Nice.
All right, Daniel, what's your second pick of the day?
Yeah. So it's kind of a left turn.
Cool.
So this is Bill Dixon, jazz trumpeter. I chose this because I was like looking through what I had listened to in the past few days, and I was driving. I had to like pick up a record collection in the next city over, and I was driving, and I always listen to album shuffle in my car, so it'll like play a whole album through and then randomly play another whole album through, and it had started playing this when I was like driving and not paying attention. And I saw what was playing, and I was like, oh, I should change that. Cause it's like, usually when you're driving, you want something with like a strong beat and is, very full sounding. Cause I was like hearing all the road noise and everything going on around me. But then like I started to hit the like next album button, and I was just like, I don't want to change it from this. I love this record. And so Bill Dixon, I don't know how well known he is. He doesn't have a whole lot of records. I think I grabbed this one just because it's like his more kind of well-known record, Intents and Purposes. And so he's a trumpet player, but I think he's more known as a composer. And what I like about his music is the arrangements are just really, really open and spare. So they'll be just sort of long passages of almost silence. And rather than having a sort of like a lot of harmonic interplay and among the instruments, like it's like the instruments sort of take turns doing things and coming to the front. But it's quiet and it's gentle, but it's also really sort of dissonant and challenging, which I think is like I don't know, a unique combination.
Wow.
I love his music. So every time I see a record of his, I pick it up. And there's Volume 1 live in Italy and Volume 2 also. But that Intents and Purposes record, if you like that sort of, you know, it's almost, it kind of has like a third stream classical kind of feel, because there's like a lot of instruments. It's not like a small jazz combo. That Intents and Purposes record is great, but I've never heard one of his records that I didn't love. He's just a great musician.
Nice. That's awesome. Mike, did you ever have any of his records?
I was going to say, I was going to bring, like, because Tony knows there was a period of my life about like 10 years ago to like 6 where I was buying nothing but jazz. I went down like the jazz rabbit hole. I was just buying like only, it was crazy. I was obsessed by jazz.
Yeah.
I had like a big jazz collection, but I'm not aware of this guy. No.
Me neither. I own a lot. I mean, one, being a store owner, two, just personally being a fan of jazz, I own a lot of fucking jazz records, and I don't own anything by them. So this is awesome. But it's one of my favorite things, especially if you know, what's the joke, right? If you're like aging in hardcore, you're gonna go like the rockabilly route or the jazz route. You know what I mean? Like I'm forever going the jazz route, never going down the rockabilly route ever.
Yeah.
But one of the best things about coming to that, like at some point, you know, like later in life or whatever, is that it's like starting all over. It's like it doesn't matter how much you think you know, you seriously don't know shit. You know, it's like every single day I could learn a new jazz thing that I want to check out, or like a fact, or an entire band or somebody's career that I've never heard of. Dude, that's the best thing. It's like keeps you going, you know.
This is amazing. This kind of is a real good nugget of information. Which,
oh shit!
There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
I own that record, so I just didn't
Yeah.
never check out the thank you, Robert. That's cool.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I own that Cecil Taylor record, so
That's fucking.
really heard him on that.
That's an insane record. But all Cecil Taylor's insane. But
Oh yeah.
that's what
I might have said on here before, but he is the only person that I've ever played in the store that people walked out when I was playing it. You know? I mean, that includes death metal, doom, you know, offensive rap, everything. I played a Cecil Taylor record. People just like lost they were just like out in the store. This poor
That's people's code, man.
They were just like, nope. And it was clearly that was 100% the reason they walked out. Like as soon as it came out, it was like,
I always remember. Did you ever watch that like Ken Burns series on jazz?
Yeah, like where he literally is just like, and then there was avant-garde jazz. Anyway,
But then they have
next week for.
They have either Brantford or Wynton Marsalis talking about Cecil Taylor, and he just rips him apart. He's like, that music is bullshit.
He's so conservative, right?
Yeah. It's really surprising.
Yeah, fuck that dude. And, you know, Ken Burns and fucking. Although I did just recently watch a Civil War documentary, which was fine.
That was all right. Keep out of jazz, Ken Burns.
But his taste in jazz, him just skipping, like pretty much skipping all avant-garde jazz is like ridiculous.
Yeah, that really annoyed me, I have to say.
Yeah.
All right, nice. Good to have some jazz on the show. That's cool, especially when we can talk about like Cecil Taylor for a little bit too. So nice bonus. All right.
Boy, boy.
Derik, what's your next choice?
What do we got? Oh boy, who's coming next?
Hi, Pam.
All right. So, Killer from Belgium, Shockwaves.
Beautiful.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. It's like there's obviously like some punk Motorhead influence, but also like new wave of British heavy metal. The vocals are aggro, but they're operatic at times, and they're so good. They're such a great band. Like, you guys familiar with this band?
No.
I have that record.
Not me. Yeah.
I mean, if you like Motorhead, you'll love it. It's so good. It's like,
I mean, again, we're talking about like this logo font up here with the sword.
Yeah.
I'm hooked in already. No chance that I don't want to hear that record with that kind of logo.
Yeah, it's what year is this? I think it's 84, but
it's like France had Volcane, Motorhead kind of band. Germany had Backwater. Belgium had like Acid and Killer, right? Motorhead style, raw heavy metal.
Yep. We got Shorty, Spooky, and Double Bear.
Yes. the classic lineup of the band.
Yeah, when Double Bear joined the band, he brought the double bass. He was really intense. He looks like a professional wrestler from the mid '80s. Looks like a leopard skin, sleeveless, but like he's totally jacked. And when I read about when he joined the band, like somebody, I think it was the Wikipedia, it said in double bassed, like BASSED, rum monster, double bear, but it was double bass drum monster. But as I was reading, I'm like, no, I choose to believe it's double bass drum monster. But I could see, kind of like what's his name from Revenge of the Nerds? Not Lyle Alzado, who's the football player who's in Revenge of the Nerds, but it looks like that.
Smashing the beer cans in his head or whatever, like so.
Yeah. But just musically proficient, and the songwriting's amazing. Like it's really solid. It's not just like Motorhead worship mid '80s. It's just a fantastic band, and they were pretty influential in Belgium at the time.
Yeah, them and Acid, and And I wonder if anyone's picked up on this, the resemblance to that recent Long Knife album, the cover.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That Long Knife record, I think, is a direct swipe from that movie The Keep, or the book or the movie The Keep, but that's clearly like it's the same.
Similar, right?
Yeah. Yes. Oh yeah, totally. You'll love it. You'll love it. And every time I put it on, I'm like, God damn. It's really like my turntable's here, my kitchen's a couple rooms away, so I really have to blast it. So I have to wait till the dog's upstairs. I'm scared. Yeah. Double too much for my pup.
Like classic, like raw heavy metal from that era, that you can't replicate. A lot of bands kind of try to replicate that era, right? But you kind of can't quite. Just the production, and the songwriting. It's great. It's great.
It's top notch. It's really, really good. Yeah.
All right. Killer. There we go.
Yes. Right. Peace, baby.
Is it me?
Yes.
You're up. Well, yeah, flashing back to one of yours, Mike. This one's on Svart Records.
And
this is, it's a compilation by a Finnish band, and I have a pretty a real touchy kind of relationship with peace punk. There's sometimes I appreciate, for Crass, for example, I might appreciate the graphic design, but I'm not really throwing those fucking records on. That's just me. I just don't care. I kind of. When I listen to it, I might gravitate a little more towards Zounds or the Mob or something like that. You know what I mean? But yeah, this band, 1981. I really, really, really love. This is a collection. This is called Anthems for Doomed Youth, and it's just a collection of their 45s. I really feel like if more people heard this, or there was more distribution at the time, that maybe they would have kind of just had a little more love. But it feels like, the singles, I think, dripped and drabbed a little bit in the United States. It wasn't like they were impossible to find over here, but when something like this happened and everything could just be in one spot, it seemed like nobody. You carry Svart stuff, Daniel, right, through the distribution in the store, right? But this was a bunch of years ago, and I feel like at the time, maybe nobody was really getting the Svart stuff over. And I had to check this out before we jumped on. There was only one pressing of this LP. Not that it's super expensive or anything, but it looks like they just did one pressing and then that was it, and there was just nothing else. But the songs, it's super stripped down, I guess classic peace punk should be, but it's tight. It's not ramshackle at all. And it just has this incredible negative vibe, which I really like. It's kind of the vibe is we want the world to be a better place, but we know that it can never be a better place. And that's like the vibe. It's got this like ultimate depressing vibe, like that just like permeates all the songs. And it's great. You know, it's just like very just like rainy day, depressing, catchy post peace punk. Some of it also like it almost touches a little bit of like early New Model Army, maybe a little bit. I don't know if somebody would disagree. If they had this record, they would maybe think that or not. But sometimes when I think about like maybe just like Vengeance era New Model Army, then I feel like maybe the influence on 1981 it comes a little bit, at least some bit of it comes from that, and not just Crass Records, Zounds, you know what I mean, Mob, and like that kind of stuff or whatever. So, but yeah, it's just incredible. And it just feels like nobody really ever talks about them, or you don't see the records. Again, when I was looking at Discogs, it looked like they put out a new single in 2023, which I did not hear about. So I'm very interested in checking that out. And it would be cool if, like, I mean, I would like to think that these sold, but I wonder if, like, there's just copies sitting at, you know, Svart, like, just hanging out there, because I feel like this is a band that, like, people would really like if, you know, they just had a little bit better distribution, or it was just out there a little more. They never toured the US, but I saw them in Japan a couple of times.
Did we see them together?
You, Mike.
What's that? Did we see them together?
I think so. Yep.
I saw them in Japan.
I liked them so much. I mean, I think like it's very rare. I think I saw them like 4 times when on that Japanese tour. I think I was just like, shit. I didn't even mean to be there at the same time as them. I loved the record, and I was like, well, they don't seem like they're coming to the United States at any point, so I guess I'm going to see them as many times as I can. You know,
they kind of got some. They got some traction in Japan. I think wasn't that released as a CD by a Japanese label, right?
It totally was, and I mean the crowd loved them. I mean every show, like the crowd really loved them. Yeah. You know, they were playing with like, I mean, when I say stripped down, I mean they do not have heavy distortion on their instruments or anything. It's like very stripped down peace punk, and so they were playing after. You know, they're headlining over like I can't remember, but like probably Frompted, maybe. You know, these like really crushing heavy Japanese hardcore bands, and then they're playing after with like practically no distortion on their guitars, and but still the crowd was like,
people loved them.
Oh, absolutely. It was not like you weren't like, oh shit, this sucks now because it's not. It was like everybody was just like, no, like we're here for this. And it was just great. So
that's a good one. And let's talk about Svart Records a little bit more, because my next pick is also on Svart Records, and it's also from Finland, but it's an old band that have like kind of I guess they reformed, right? And they just put out a new album, a new record, and it's fucking amazing. It's Terveet Kadet.
Yeah.
This thing is like Jesus Christ. I mean, there's only like one original member of the band. Obviously, it's, you know, Lala's band. You know, the only original member. I did not see this one coming. You know,
we sold out of that at the store, and I didn't get a chance to listen.
It's like
I got one of those too.
Yeah, just happened to be right there.
Yeah.
It's strange because let's just talk about Svart Records a little bit, because they're a big label, you know, and this was not easy to get here because the smaller shops don't really get the Svart stuff so much, like Punk and Destroy and Revenge. So it was like either Disc Union, but they sold out like super quick, or I got this from Amazon. I had to get it from Amazon because Amazon has like all. It's a shame, really, but I had to get it from them because they actually do have really good distribution, but in a weird way. You know, that maybe they're not hitting the smaller stores. I'm not sure, but it's an interesting dynamic. You know, it's a really big label that does jazz and all sorts of stuff, right? But
Other than seeing the copies that you sometimes have, Daniel, other than that, like certain larger, like you're saying, like Amazon, certain larger distributors, I occasionally see they will carry 1 or 2 Svart releases, but it's never what I'm looking for from them. You know, it's always like these more oddball, semi-mainstream ones. It's like no one in the US is trying to like actively distribute to stores or people the kind of things that we're talking about.
It's a tough one. Yeah.
It's strange because they're super easy to deal with from a business standpoint. Like they were, they like reached out to me because they've been putting out they've always put out tons of great reissues, but they were like, we want to get these out more in the punk scene in America. And,
that's awesome.
Yeah, they were. I mean, we've sold 100+ copies of that box set. Like,
yeah. So
people eat it up.
Yeah. So, you know, classic Finnish hardcore. Jack Control was involved in the mastering, I think, so it sounds huge. You know, it's funny because like it's kind of metallic too. You know, it's like I like it. I like the '90s era of Terveet Kadet the best, like more than the early stuff. Just that's my personal taste. You know, like Bizarre Domination and Sign of the Cross, and when they had a lot of the bondage, like mid to late '90s Terveet Kadet, when they were a little bit more metally, and this is more like that, I would say. It's kind of
to me, I love them. I love the early stuff, and I feel like, you know, Aratan Julu, or I don't know Finnish, so apologies, but that's like, I think, one of the best hardcore records ever. And then they changed drummers, and I feel like those records like Black God kind of get down a little bit, and then when they reformulate the lineup again in the 90s, they get
exactly. And I love all the aesthetic, like the bondage theme and like all that kind of stuff. It's kind of interesting, but this is.
Did you see that they just made underpants that say "Pisa Japaska"? It's like piss and shit, and they made these like brown tidy whitey underpants to have it screened on them. It's like classic merchandise.
I mean, you know, it's like it's like, look, come on, you got a you know, a punk band, hardcore punk band that has a gatefold sleeve like this. Can't help but admire that.
I respect that. Yeah, that's fine.
You know, very like rock and roll, and the band is super tight. Like it's got a super tight band. I'm not sure if any of the members are from any other like Finnish hardcore bands, like contemporary bands, but
yeah, they toured the US in like maybe 2010 or so, and they were killer. They sounded great.
Yeah. So, who would have thought? I didn't see this coming. Like new Terveet Kadet record, Kaikki, Kaikkia, Vastaan on Svart Records. Face melter of a record. Classic.
You know, it's funny. I remember I was listening to Henry Rollins' radio show, like this maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and he had Mike Patton from Faith No More on as a guest, and Mike Patton played a Terveet Kadet song.
They used that in the promo. Going back to the promo thing, everyone loves, huge influence. Everyone from Mike Patton to like this loves like Terveet Kadet. I mean, why wouldn't you use it? It's there. Grab it.
Of course, yeah. And it is. I feel like it's sort of adventurous in a way that might appeal to people who like that Epic Hack Records kind of thing.
Yeah. Classic. It's good to see like he's still going and he's got a good band together and putting out a good new record. So there you go. That's my third pick.
Nice.
Finland. Finland's great, man. Love Finland.
Yeah, that's like, I always make a point to see bands from Japan or Finland. Like I always feel like they're almost always going to be great.
I've got to say this. Our buddy James Cathcart, who's been on the show, he's a good friend of ours. He knew that Ratus were doing their last ever show in their like small little town in Finland, wherever they live. He flew there and went to their last ever show, and everyone was like super excited. And I think he mentioned those I think Terveet Kadet might have played as well, because he did mention the underpants. That wasn't the first time I heard about the underpants.
Yeah. Man, Ratus played when Ratus toured the US, and maybe like it's like, I don't know, the mid 2000s or something.
I saw them in Baltimore.
They destroyed. Yeah, I saw them twice on that tour. It was,
I want to say it was sad in Baltimore because I think, if I'm not messing this up, Skit System maybe did a US tour right
They were at the same time.
Yeah. And so in Baltimore, Skit System played a relatively small DIY space in Baltimore, and it was so packed. I mean, it was like just wall to wall and insane. And then like 2 weeks later, if not less time, I went to see same spot, went to see them. No, like 10 people. It was just like
really?
People. It was like they, maybe again, it was just because those Skit System records were getting like massive distribution. You know what I mean? Like there was just that minute where it was like, was it Genocide SS and Skit System and like all this stuff was like really happening, and it just seemed like that was where everybody's brain was. So that show was packed out, but nobody for Rajas. So or very few people, if I remember.
Hail to Finland.
Yeah.
All right, Daniel, what's your third pick of the day?
Cool.
Yeah, here we go.
I'm gonna go for the Cool Greenhouse. I don't know if anyone knows this band. I'm really curious. No one knows them.
I don't. I'm happy to see it though. I'm happy to learn about it. Yeah.
So, yeah, I love this band. Let's see. They are English. They are heavily indebted to the Fall. I think it's fair to say. I think they started as a one-man project, with like drum machines and synths and things, and then, later brought in a live band. So their first album, I think it was all a band. So that was even more Fall, because it's just like sort of same thing, like lots of repetitive sort of grooving on the same riff. And then this record is like a mix of band tracks and individual tracks. But the guy is like the best lyricist, I think. I don't know. His lyrics blow my mind. It's one of those bands where like I listen to their records and just like cackle. It's so funny and so like smart. He really like sort of has a lot to say about our world, and says it in this way that's really like clever and occasionally profound. And then some of it's really silly, which I really like sometimes too. Like the first song, Musicians, it's about like sort of finding musicians to play in the band. And that track is weird. It almost has like a Fela Kuti kind of vibe. There's lots of like auxiliary percussion and stuff. And sort of as he talks about adding musicians to the band, more instruments come into the mix and the sound gets bigger and more cacophonous.
I love it.
And then there's the last song is another really long, jammy one where he sort of imagines this, like, if the Velvet Underground were from another planet and like beamed their music to Earth or something. It's really like surreal and insane. I was hoping someone had an opinion, because I just don't know if this band is something that is just like so in my wheelhouse that I just love it, or if they're just like legit a great fucking band. They have a great single about Alexa, like the Amazon Alexa thing, and that's one that like makes me howl. And in the middle of the song, there's this breakdown, and he starts like giving commands to Alexa, and he's like, Alexa, buy 10 copies of the new Greenhouse album and tickets to all of their shows.
So is it new, Daniel? It's new?
They're a current band. This album just came out this year.
Oh, wow. And who put it out?
They have one previous LP and a handful of singles. Okay. And just they can do no wrong in my book. Like they're awesome. One of my absolute favorite bands in the world.
Yeah, it's good to get like stuff that you don't know, I've never heard of. I like that too. So,
yeah, I mean, it's quirky. It might not be everybody's cup of tea, but it is my cup of tea. I could drink by the gallon. So
I'm very I love when bands write songs about other bands, like and name check them. You know what I mean? Like actively, like if like White Flag writes the song Shonen Knife and Shonen Knife writes the song Blue Oyster Cult, or like NoFX writes a song. I am a huge fan of Bad Religion. Like, it doesn't matter if I like the band or don't like the band. I am tickled when a band writes a song in tribute to another band, but I'm also super tickled when a band writes a song about their own band. So that would be like Rock and Roll Band by Boston. You know what I mean? Where it's just them forming the band. I love that. So hearing that there's a song about that on that record, I'm going to check it out just for that.
There's actually like loads of their songs are about themselves. So there's a song on here about fulfilling mail order. And he's like, the song starts and he's like, if you can find the fucking end of this stupid thing of sellotape, then it's like tons of things like that. Like it's very, very meta, very like intertextual, just smart.
That's great. I'll check it out just because of that, just because of the song, that kind of that thing. I love that. So
yeah.
Was it only me that when Daniel said about like the band or the different instruments coming in, was I the only person that thought of Mike Oldfield Tubular Bells?
Maybe so. Do they do that?
Because it's like he talks in the instruments. It's like one bass guitar and then wind chimes. Really? Yeah, I'm thinking. I wonder if they took it from there. I'd be interested to find out. That's the kind of classic example.
I've never listened to Tubular Bells.
Get on it.
Been like hundreds of copies.
I know how many copies have I held in my hands.
Listen to it.
A million. Never listened to it.
It just starts off, and then finally the cassette, and finally introducing Tubular Bells, and then Tubular Bells come in. It's the I'm thinking if it's like a kind of a parody or like a take of like Tubular Bells, that would be cool.
Very possible.
Nice.
Yeah.
Great mix of familiar, mix of new. That's great. Yeah. All right, Derik, what's your next pick of the day?
Yeah, so I'm breaking the tradition of 12 inches or full lengths, and I got a 7-inch, but it's the only thing this band did. And this is Rash of Beatings from the mid 90s from Arkansas. I think Fort Smith, Arkansas. I don't think anyone in this band really did anything else. This is all they did. And it's on Sensual Underground Ministries out of Oklahoma. They're somehow connected to, there was a band, Brother Inferior. They were kind of their brother band. But it's brutal, and it's kind of in the tradition of the mid-90s. But it's not power violence. It's not grind. And, in that era, there were a lot of kind of clean-cut, like baggy long-sleeve kids trying to play Slayer. And it sounds like it's going to be that, but it quickly gets darker and dirtier. And it's kind of groovy in a way. Like there's a metal influence, there's some Slayer guitar-y flavor to it, but it's kind of like this mid-tempo at times. There's grind blast beats too, but I've always loved this band. I got this from Neil Robinson, like Tribal War Records, and that was when I did a distro, and I ended up distroing it, and I kept talking it up. And this is all they did. And I'm just so into it. I pulled this out. I had this since 96, and I listen to it once in a while. And, Mike, we were talking about like listening to 7 inches, we're old and, generally sit there.
The armchair.
But there's a few 7 inches that I listen to a lot. And I really dig this. There's nothing else they have. I found some guy from Arkansas on Tumblr, and I wrote to him to try to find out more information. Didn't hear anything, but yeah, that's that. There's really nothing on them, but you'll find some stuff in there, kind of a cult favorite from back then, especially in the South.
Yeah, so, I've never heard of it. Yeah.
Daniel,
I was going to say, does that not come through the store? Sorry State somewhat often. That record,
I don't recall seeing it.
That record comes through Celebrated Summer often, just in the kind of like, just buy a collection from like, a crust punk kid that's like kind of getting out of it or whatever. But, the interesting thing is it doesn't, like, somebody will trade it in a collection, and it's like a $2, it's like maybe a $3 7-inch or whatever, but it's a great record, and it never stays long. But I see they come through often, somebody's, I'm having a kid, so here's all my crust records. But then that Rash of Beatings record, somebody is forever just like, oh shit, you know what I mean? Like, this is a bargain at $2 or $3 or whatever whatever it's priced at. So I actually see a lot of copies of it, but it's a great record. So
I've seen it around, but it stands out for sure.
Yeah, I feel like the cover looks super cool. Like I'll definitely like remember it, and if I see a copy,
I've definitely owned a copy of that in my life, definitely.
There's a lot of copies coming through a day. At some point, you're going to see one sooner than later. So,
but it's from an era where people didn't do like super limited pressings of their singles. It's out there, It's like I like that. That's how it should be. easy to find, not expensive, but great. Yeah. That's the kind of record I like. That I'm the king of the 100 yen bin. What kind of stuff?
That is definitely that is like in that spirit for sure.
Yeah. People need to know that you don't have to spend a lot of money to get a good record collection. There's great records out there that you can find.
Yeah, it holds up.
I almost could have been pulling a kind of mirrored style thing because I had a pile of. I haven't been very good at listening to my singles lately, so I pulled a bunch of like favorites out, and I right in my hand was almost a Deformed Conscience single.
Yes.
Everything, and it would have been a nice little thing since they're
like along the lines,
I was listening to the Split album just last night. It's not on my pile. Excrement of War and Deformed Conscience. Last night.
Both of those were in my hand, and I was just like, because they're just in piles. I was just like, is it going to be one of these? And I was just like, it's not. But I love those Deformed Conscience. So close. Instead, I picked this poorly distributed but incredibly one of those bands where like their other records were okay, and then they just took this like running jump into being like, in my opinion, just night and day incredible past their other releases. It's just that their other releases were better distributed and nobody got this, which is Dear Daily Life by Acrostix. And I just, they have that LP on, is it on Crust War? Right?
That's so weird. Again, this is so weird. I was looking at Disc Union online last night, and they had Blackwater. Didn't Blackwater put out the?
I don't.
Let us know in the comments.
Blackwater did do a record for them, but not this one.
Okay.
This one just got no. I mean, I'm not. I don't think it's an expensive record at all.
No.
However, I think that it was a record where, like, I'm not comparing it musically to, but you know what I mean when you think about like the last Paintbox LP, where it was just like, whoa, that's quite a change, or like that's quite a, wow, that's interesting, that's cool, like that kind of like is like a new thing. I feel like they did a similar thing in comparison to their older records, except unlike that Paintbox record, no one heard this. You know what I mean? Or like it just didn't get around very much. But I just love this record. I love the artwork. It's just like obliterates their earlier stuff, which isn't even bad. You know what I mean? Like the other stuff is fine, but this is just like, I don't know. It's just better written, better produced. Gives me a feeling of like wanting to pump my fist. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's just like, I have a lot.
Is it similar in style though?
What's
to their other records?
I mean, it's just tighter and better produced, but without being overproduced. Yeah, I don't know. I might need a second opinion on the production difference, but like, what do you think, Mike?
I can give like a little bit of an insight, so that Acrostix. I mean, they start off with like an amoebics, like they love the amoebics, so they were like crusty, and they were in the crust scene, and then they kind of started getting into the like Japanese, like the traditional Japanese hardcore. And they would play with Warhead and Nightmare and bands like that in the Osaka area. And little by little, they kind of went more in that direction, like less crusty and more in like the traditional Burning Spirit. So I suppose that record is kind of a mix of both of those worlds in a way. They kind of like went from one scene to the other. And they were one of those bands that was important in Osaka in the fact that they bridged those two scenes that had been separate for so long. Frampton is another one. The crust scene and the traditional Japanese hardcore scene used to be quite separate, but that generation of bands really like built a bridge and brought those two things together. So that's how I remember Acrostix.
Yeah, I never got to see them in any era, and that was a time period when this record came out. I was traveling and visiting, but they just never were playing when I was there. So I wish I could have seen them live. Jealous of.
I used to see them like all the time.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, just because they will play, a lot of shows, obviously in the area, But they're from Mie. They're not from Osaka. They're from Mie.
Oh, okay, I got it. Yeah,
which is towards Nagoya way,
But Mike, did you see him in this era as well? Like
all eras.
Yeah. I just feel like, I mean, you know how it is. Like certain records hit you, but maybe they just, they might not have made as much of an impact, whether it be through distribution or, maybe it just didn't hit people the same way. But for whatever reason, when I heard this record, I was just really like taken away by it. And I still really feel that way, years later. And I just wish it, just like a lot of these things I feel like I pick, it's just records I wish it just had better distribution, or I wish people had
that record was delayed quite a while for various reasons that I cannot go into on
right, of course.
We'll get to it after the show.
Right. I remember I remember that reason, the reasoning there, the distribution being somewhat of a problem. But I think I brought some back to the US one trip. Maybe I brought 10 of them back and sold them at Celebrated Summer. So maybe randomly some people in Baltimore, might have gotten that record coming back from one of my trips. But I feel like, it didn't get around very much.
That's like the Die Hard version with the Obi too, right?
This is just a regular one. Oh, okay. It has an Obi, but I think that the Die Hard version has a red cover.
Oh.
There's a difference. This is the regular version.
All right. Okay.
Because I don't need, it's fine for me. Any version is fine. But I believe there's a version that has somewhat different art, or not different art, but there's some kind of color difference. I'm not exactly sure, and that's the Die Hard version. This is just a regular one. So.
I think that record was also the start of that thing of putting the Obies on. That was very influenced by actually Pink Floyd. That Obi is very much like the old Pink Floyd Obies from the 70s.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. It is very intricate. The Obi for this is pretty relatively intricate here, looking like it's cool. Top and
that Obi is a direct lift from 70s Obies. That's pretty cool, right? Yeah. Nice to see Alex on the show. Not on the show, but in the chat. How you doing, Alex? There you go. You know that cliche, nobody ever talks about this band. Nobody. I'm going to use it. Nobody ever talks about this band. I'm
that living cliche. Whenever I pull things for any of these, Mike, I'm always like, what's some dumb shit that nobody's talking about right now? It's just I could, of course, just pull something, that I'm listening to, but everybody, but I'm just nobody's really thinking about. I mean, somebody is, right?
No, but that's what I'm going to do right now. That's what I'm going to do. A band that nobody ever talks about. Really. And Finnish, also a Finnish band. Let me know if you know this band, because I think they are, I hate using the word underrated or not talked about, but I really feel like this band is. They've probably already broken up. They haven't put a record out since 2016. I'll show the record. It's this band.
Oh, such a great band.
Right? Sokea, Piste. I don't know how you pronounce that. I don't even know if it's Finnish, but it's
yeah. They played here in Raleigh. They were great. Yeah.
So we were talking about 1981, the post-punk band from Finland. This is not polite. This is the hardest end of Finnish hardcore and Finnish post-punk. It's so powerful. It's almost like Exit stance. It's the real hard side of anarcho-punk, mixed with Finnish hardcore. That's how I hear it. And I don't know what you think about that, Daniel, but man,
yeah,
so good.
I haven't listened to that for years, but I remember feeling like it had a almost kind of a slightly spooky, De Kreuzen kind of element to it, a lot of kind of dissonant little chords and stuff.
It's just got the huge bass, the rolling drums. They don't really play any fast songs. It's all in that kind of mid-tempo with the kind of really catchy anthemic vocals. Oh God, this band is so good, and I do feel like nobody talks about them.
Oh, it's a total dollar bin record, but it's so underrated.
And weirdly, that one has never come through the store. I've never.
Really?
This is my first time. This is my first time hearing about it, and I've never seen a copy come through the store.
So Kamasset Levitt put it out originally, the Finnish label, but Kazu from Punk and Destroy did a pressing of it in Japan on his Mouse Records. I'm not sure which one is which. There's the black cover.
I've never seen the black cover.
So maybe the black cover is the Japanese one.
Yeah.
I bought this. Sorry, I thought it was a different album, but it's the same. But I didn't mind it. So I don't care. It's like it's so good. I don't mind having like Honestly, check this band out. They're so good. It's like really hard hitting, powerful.
Yeah.
Discordant, like post punk. Maybe they were just around at the wrong time. I don't know. It's like,
I think that's absolutely the case. Did they? I don't know if you know anything about them, but there was a band who toured a few years earlier than them who might be related called Kaiklupian Sukoputo. Do you know that band?
Do you mean this band?
That record is great. Yeah.
That one, yeah, it's true. Yeah,
I don't know if those bands. I put them together in my mind.
There's one or two members of that band,
but that's another band who played Raleigh and just shredded. This
one is more like hardcore, but it's quirky.
Yeah,
I'm excited. I don't know what to say about it. I love it so much.
Yeah, that is an excellent record. Yeah.
So there you go. Some exciting music from Finland that nobody talks about, nobody cares about. Both of these bands are amazing.
Yeah,
check them out. And if anyone out there is holding like the Sokea Piste, like I think it's the second album. I have this one too. I thought I'd show it. This is their most recent album.
Yeah, we carried that at Sorry State too.
Really, I don't have the other one. There's one more, right? And maybe a single as well.
Are they still active?
Well, they haven't put out a record since 2016 or 2013 or something like that. So I'm not sure.
I think the guy who organized the tours and maybe he helped either put out or distribute the records in America. I'm blanking on his name right now. He was from Buffalo.
It's Peter Walkie Records.
Peter Walkie, yes. Maddow. Yeah, exactly. He brought those bands and put out those records, and I feel like he has really good taste in music, and like for some reason like his releases don't seem to get traction with sort of the.
Well, I can tell you, I was talking to Kazu about this because when I bought it, I told him, "Man, this is like the best record you put out," and he's like, "No one cares about this record. I can't. I've got boxes of them, in the warehouse. I can't. Nobody cares because it's like it's not in the pocket. It's not like traditional Finnish hardcore, and it's not totally peace punk. It's like a mix of lots of things." So it doesn't really fall into anybody's, like, you know what I mean? It's like,
but I feel like both of those bands have the intensity that I like love.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Metal brought over Hero Dishonest.
Yes. Yeah. Another like very underrated Finnish band, I think. Yeah.
They were great.
See, there's still a lot of things to discover out there that won't break the bank. So many great records.
Yeah.
So, Sokea Piste is my fourth pick of the day. Check them out; they're so good.
Write it down. I have no idea how I missed that, but yeah.
I listened to it again last night, and it was like literally the hairs on the back of my neck were standing up. Like seriously, it's that good.
Gonna pull those out.
Yeah. There you go. Sorry, I was a bit excited. I love that. So good. All right, Daniel, what's your next pick?
I guess the next one I'll go with this band, Dzyan. It's like it's basically a krautrock record, I guess. It's 70s German progressive. I think I heard this at a friend's house years ago and like put it on my want list and, had been, just keeping an eye out for a copy for years. And a few weeks ago, someone was selling one for a good price on Discogs. And I was like, all right, smash the buy button. And it came and it's killer. It has like, I feel like it's got a little, for me, like the krautrock stuff I like, some of it leans more toward the prog side and some of it leans more toward the kind of like ambient spacey side, and this kind of has elements of both of those. Like they'll lock into like an Amon Duel 2 type like like complex rhythm, and then like that'll just sort of evaporate and everything will get real like delicate and noodly for a minute. But I think it's like a it's a really good record. I don't know.
Is that a Brain Records thing or Bellophone?
Bellophone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's been reissued. I think it's like a known record in the like krautrock world. But
it's on my list actually. To be honest with you.
Man, you're so good at this.
Who?
Thank you.
No, you're just so you're descriptive and articulate.
I know. That's why I was apologizing. Me like, it's like 'cause he's so good at it. Like,
if I get down the rally, I'm going to be broke.
That's why he has a record store.
We're just going to make Daniel's Square the biggest one right in the
middle. You're nice.
Nice. It's hard it is a hard thing to describe records, especially when you really like them. Because for me, I get too excited and it's like, it's like
It rips always works. You know?
Rips is a good record. Great.
Crusher.
Or you could just copy and paste the like I did. I copied and pasted the Sorry State Records description of it. That's another thing you can do.
Well, Daniel mentioned this band, but no one's ever heard of them. But I'll introduce you.
Oh, there you go.
It's, if you don't speak German, it means the Kreuzen. This is the 84 pressing, but it's like the UK one. So I think it's got like the yellow labels. If you're as a little nerdy in that way, but when I revisited this over the pandemic, and first of all, who sounded like this in like 83, 84? I mean, it sounds like it could have, but there's bands that came to mind because you know how sometimes like young kids they're like, oh shit, you sound like this band, but they've never heard of them because like so many iterations, so many generations. But let me know what you think of this. These bands came to mind. No Means No, as far as being influenced by them. Like the first track is so like bass driven, like so that kind of thing. Fucking Behead the Prophet, the Olympia like queercore band. Who else? Grimple. Grimple, who were like the Bay Area, kind of somewhere between Filth and J Church, like almost like a brutal pop punk band. But the vocals and Dan Kubinski from Kreuzen, like what a voice! Like you go from screaming to singing. He was just everyone's a fucking unbelievable player. A Little Civil Disobedience, like the first 7-inch, where there's like just funky, like crusty, but weird. Can't remember who else I was thinking, but yeah, just like who they influenced. There's such an eclectic band, but there's this little like 10-minute documentary on them on YouTube, like right around when they played this show.
I did see that. Yeah,
Wonky, and they were just talking about that. But no, it's just unreal. Like who the hell sounded like that? It reminded me like the first time I heard Negative Approach, and I'm like, dude, for 80-81, like the vocals were so brutal, over the top, harsh, and but like what an original, amazing band.
That footage of them on public access TV
is it's so gnarly.
The best video of a hardcore band playing. They're gods.
And it's so ugly and unpalatable, like to someone watching like public access. Oh man, it's unreal how good it is.
Record is incredible. Yeah.
I was going to say Voivod was my first pick of like bands who were influenced by.
Yeah, certainly.
Oh man,
yeah. I'm really curious. I saw the Crosses are playing Skullfest, like which I guess is just like the singer Dan, and I don't know if it's anyone else from the.
I didn't know that.
But I think they're playing like I think it said like the first LP. I'm curious to see that.
At Skullfest.
Wow. I think they played shows.
They have played shows before, right? As the Crosses?
For sure. Yeah. I think maybe just in Milwaukee. I don't think they've like toured it, but yeah, there's definitely they've played shows as it.
Yeah.
I would love to see that.
In that doc, they talked about how they recorded by some major labels like Epic Records, like the guy that signed Metallica, and they were saying, but and he came to see them, took them out, hobnobbed, and but eventually came to a conclusion, they're not ready for you.
Yeah,
just too out there, and but yeah, I like their trajectory. Like, they weren't afraid to, they were just doing their own thing. And I might not
how do you feel about their later records, though?
Like October File's good, I think, and after that was more alternative.
I like
quality.
Century Days. Century Days is good too, right? I can go that far. I haven't heard anything after that though.
Yeah, no. I listened to October File a while ago, and I was like, I feel like there are a couple of moments on it when you get that hit of what they had on the first album, but something about it for me doesn't. I mean, that record's so perfect. It's sort of sad that anything they do is going to get compared to it, but
yeah, it's unreal.
No,
yes,
that's a great pick. That's weird. It kind of synced up with what we were talking about with Sokea, Piste, and Off Kilter hardcore and stuff.
Yeah,
great. All right, Tony.
My next pick is also slightly off kilter hardcore. It's slightly. It also, there's a connection to Stars. I actually was in between these two records. You actually put out, I believe you put out, hold on a second, not this one, but did you put out the second Sickoids record?
Yeah.
Okay. I also love that one.
Very De Kreuzen influenced too.
And I was going to say, yeah, I don't look. When this record came out, I tried to describe it to people, and I was like, it has this cold, Midwestern kind of cold feel. I don't know how to. It's it doesn't sound necessarily like those bands, but the feeling that I get when I listen to it is Die Kreuzen. Even, I mean, weirdly, even Pegboy a little bit, just little aspects of where there's a track that's a little more melodic than but it still has that harsh, cold guitar sound. I do not know, but I love this record, and yeah, I guess it's around, right? But again, I feel like maybe this one didn't get as around as it could have.
Yeah,
I think
Jordan actually.
Who put this one out?
Jordan Atkins.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah, on Residue.
Oh,
well,
there you
go. I love this thing, and I break it out often and play it, and yeah, it just it touches a little bit with the Die Kreuzen. So are they from Philly? I don't know. I never saw them, unfortunately. I didn't see. They were from Philly.
The drummer lived there. I don't know about everyone.
Drummer lived there. Yeah.
I think they all lived there at the time, and then dispersed.
Yeah. Somehow I never saw them, but I really love that. So
they were monstrous. I mean, the Vince that plays drums is just that's a 3-piece band of just phenomenal musicians. And I feel like that coldness and weirdness, a lot of that comes from the guitar playing. It's so unique and just it's just not your sort of standard hardcore fast power chords.
Not at all. But not at all. This record made a big impact. When I heard it, I was like, oh, this is on some totally other shit. And yeah, I just love this thing. So always kind of hangs around in the to be listening file. It never gets fully filed away like a bunch of other things. It's just kind of hangs around there, and I love it. They don't when was the last time they maybe played? Even a long time ago, right? I guess, right?
Yeah, they haven't played for a long time.
Right. Yeah.
Members are on to other things. So Vince he did that Shaved 8 tape that we put out, and then Eric Montanez lives down here now.
Million different bands.
Yeah, we're putting out his new band in a few weeks. Nice. Yeah, but the 12-inch I put out, I think it's it's one of the best records I've ever put out.
Wow.
I love that one too. Yep. They did
the second one.
It was
really
awesome.
Compact compared to the first one. It's short, and the songs are really I don't know, they're lean. But I love them both. Great band.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's a good pick. Yeah. Wow, it's the last round. Wow. It's gone quick. Derik brought up Killer, right? That's that Motorhead influence, kind of Motorhead kind of band from Belgium.
Yep.
And we're not going to get a new record from Motorhead. Those days are over. So whenever I can, if there's a bunch of punk rockers, you know, playing some like Motorhead style punk, what do you call it, motor beats or motor charged or whatever you call it, I'm going to give it a go. This one's a good one, I think. It's probably at the top of the heap. It took a long time coming out. Blackwater put it out. It's a ripper.
Yeah.
By Ripper. I don't know. What can you say about it? It's like a bunch of punks playing like Motorhead style rock and roll. These guys are good though, you know. They're good at it. Kind of reminds me of Burning Leather, which kind of makes sense because they were a Portland band too. I don't think there's any shared members or anything, but
yeah.
Where they from?
Portland, Oregon. So there's members from like Lebend and Toten, Bellicose Minds, The Estranged, all those guys.
Estranged, wow. Yeah.
But I might be the same person that was in all those bands. I'm not sure. But,
I love those Estranged. I mean, obviously, I love this style of music, but those Estranged records are great. That easily just could have been something randomly where I could have also been like, nobody thinks about this band anymore, you know, like or whatever.
I think they were a 3-piece too, like Motown. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess like this is recorded in like 2014, and it just sat there, just on Bandcamp, and then it came out last year. That's a long time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just was lying there like in the vaults or not touched. That's weird. I don't know why that happened, but I mean, if you want Motorhead and there's not going to be a new Motorhead record, this is where you got to start going now. That band Warhawk from Sweden put out a good record last year, which was like Motorhead, motor punk, what do you want to call it? But yeah,
Nice.
Ripper.
Get out. I'll check it out.
Yeah, you know, if you like Motorhead, it's not as no, it's good. I was gonna say it's not as good as Inepsy, so don't expect like Inepsy, but it's good. It's a good record.
Nice.
Yeah,
Cool.
and it's out there because it just came out at the end.
Yeah, we have it at the shop, but I hadn't spun it yet. Yeah.
Right. Mastered by Brad Boatwright at Audio Siege, so that sounds great. Those two guys have got the monopoly, haven't they? Like Jack Control and Brad. Don't they do everything? I don't know.
And there's Will Killingsworth, the hardcore scene. Fast, cheap, does a good job. What's not to like?
Yeah, absolutely. All right. That was my last pick of the day. Ripper. Daniel, what's your last record of the day?
I think I'm going to go with Nico for my last pick. Again, I don't know. I'm just trying to throw some things out that might get some talk going. About Nico. But I love her music. And it's like, I listen to it and I see why people don't like it. I think there is a lot of like misogyny sort of in the discourse around Nico. But I sort of discovered her records like just in the past couple of years, and then there's this like relatively new biography of her that I read that sort of had me going back to him. And then I had never been able to find the Marble Index, which I think people tend to cite as her best solo album. I don't know if it's my favorite. I really like this one, The Drama of Exile, which has a very like, it kind of has a sound like Bowie's Berlin albums. But I feel weird when I listen to Nico. I'm just like, why am I like a middle-aged man listening to this like weird German woman make these like strange songs? But like, I just love it. I love her. What is the instrument she plays? Is it a harp? Not a harpsichord.
What am I thinking of?
Called the thing you hold in your hands. Like, I feel like my elementary music school
guitar.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know either. I think Nico's vocals. Like, I love Nico.
Auto harp.
That's yes. There we go. Not the auto harp.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff.
I love Nico. I think she's great. But like her vocal stylings is what, like, that's what I'm in for. That's the ticket that I've bought. Is like the doom and like just the monotone, depressed, nasal, like just whatever vocals. Like if it's a nobody's in the store, it's like pouring rain outside, it's like a rainy ass Monday, I'm like, Nico, that's who I'll be listening to today. And I agree with you. There's definitely some kind of Yoko Ono misogyny going on when people discuss Nico in the same way when they discuss Yoko, that it's just like, it's not just that you don't like the music, there's definitely an element of shitty dude element.
People view her as like an interloper. I think that like she sort of waltzed into the Velvet Underground and got this golden ticket, and then made this terrible music afterward that people still put out for some reason. But man, I think like one of the things I sort of got from the biography was just like how smart she was. Like she was really like an intellectual, and she sort of touched so many different scenes. Like she's like in a French New Wave film, and then is in the Velvet Underground, and then like lives in Manchester in the early 80s and is playing with all these like sort of post-punk legends. And I think that's like, I don't know, if a dude did that, it'd be like Danny Fields or something. You'd be like, this guy knew what was going on and went and found it. And like, that's kind of what Nico did, but she doesn't get credit for it in the same way. And I think that the smarts like come through in her music too, like instrumentally and lyrically. I love her.
She's great. Yeah. I'm on that team for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate Nico. Like my wife and I have had this kind of running joke where every once in a while, like a long time will go by, and then I'll just kind of sneak up on her and go, like just singing.
It's like Bob Dylan. It's like easy to do a caricature of it.
No one loved Nico.
All right, so this is another like known, well-respected band, but really close to my heart, particularly. And this is a 7-inch too, just because it's the first thing I got, my favorite. So it's Capitals Casualties, Raised Ignorant, and got this cool maroon Oxblood vinyl, and I got this when in the early 90s, when kind of that was kind of when I got into like DIY hardcore, and I was a metalhead before that. So, I'd heard thrash metal, and I was, but this is not thrash. It's not exactly power violence, but it's just great songwriting, like great riffs. The musicianship's amazing. Matt Martin, the drummers, became like an influence of mine, up there with the classic metal drummers. And maybe a few years after this, I went to a Fiesta Grande in the Bay Area. It was like from like New Year's Eve around like 95, 96, and watched like Joel Connell from Menace a Bastard, and all the drummers from the other band would like watch these other drummers. And Mike and the guitarist and Sean died like, fairly recently. Did a show for them when I lived in New Brunswick, New Jersey, in a basement. And they stayed at my house, and they're just like real sweethearts. And I was really sad when Sean, the singer, died. And I used to chat with Mike, the guitarist, on Facebook, and also a really sweet guy. But just a huge influence on me, drumming wise, like just like ultra tight. And between them, Drop Dead, like bands I discovered at the same time in the early mid 90s, they're just so important. And they were like the top of the heap. And like Jeff, the bassist, my first zine, I interviewed him. I like wrote in all these questions, and just amazing, an amazing band, like really important to me. And this is my favorite. Their songs, and so it's a 7-inch, but there's 10 or so songs, and if you listen to it, it holds up like a complete release. Like the songs are different from each other. It's fantastic 7-inch. I still listen to it a lot.
You guys played together? You played together, right? Back in the day, Citizens Arrested.
No, I mean I was no, really. But yeah, were they from Santa Rosa? Yeah, the first time I saw them was at Fiesta Grande.
Right.
And then they toured, and then when Max Ward started playing with them, saw them then. They came through Jersey. Yeah. Yep.
I feel like I saw them at Maryland Death Fest. I think they came Yeah, I think they played a Maryland Death Fest. Oh, I mean, I don't know how many years ago. Yeah, anyway, I saw them at Maryland Death Fest, maybe like 6 or 8 years ago. I don't know. Time has no meaning any longer, but at some point after 2010 and before yesterday, you know what I mean? Like they Baltimore at Death Fest before the singer passed away, and yeah, it was incredible. I love the record. You know that it's like some record collecting horse shit because you pulled that out, you pulled the red out, and my eyes just go over here. I'm within reaching distance almost of that record, and I'm just like, is mine on red? I think I have that bullshit. I think I have the bullshit black version. I'm like, is it bad? Just to be like, you're just talking, and I'm like, these numbers, it's like, check that one on fucking red. I'm like literally on Discogs on another screen, just being like, fucking smashing the version of it. So good.
At the first record store that got me into a lot of stuff, and I remember buying some of the kind of starter package stuff, and along with some local bands. I remember Lifetime's first LP, so it was a bizarre trip to the record store where I got that and Apple's Casualties, and
I mean, that's like similar to me. Like before I worked at Reptilian, I would go there and I would just be like, oh, I'm gonna buy this Parasites record, and then I'm gonna buy this Crossed Out record, and then it was just like that was just the world I was living in. You know what I mean? Like I just Lifetime and Man is the Bastard, and it was just like all these things kind of happening at the same time. Is it going to be a Spaz record or a Boris the Sprinkler record today? I don't know. You know what I mean? I was all over those things. It was the mid '90s. Everything was just happening at the same time.
Great days. So I say there's a Japanese like tribute album, Capitalist Casualties tribute album. I forget who's on it though, but they were well loved in Japan too.
Yeah, and they love Japan, like they were big time. 6 weeks.
When there's the Systematic Death, like USA tour documentary, and Capitalist Casualties are kind of a big part of that little segment of it when they went to. Yeah, it's on YouTube. I'll send you a link. It's very cool to see.
Nice.
Yeah. All the guys are in there, and like Systematic Death and Capitalist Casualties are like hanging out and stuff. It's really cool.
Yeah. That's one of my best punk memories ever. Was the Fiesta Grande when all the drummers were watching each other, like Dino, and the next year, Discordance Axis played. So Dave Whitty, I came up with him in Jersey, and was always like really well regarded as a drummer and a sweet guy, and so watching him, Dino from Dystopia, Joel from Man's a Bastard, just hugely important as a drummer. Yeah, all those.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Like, I'm not a drummer, but like, kind of there were all these bands that were like going so fast, but you like learning to play like that, you kind of had to invent it for yourself, right? Like, how are you just gonna do that? So I imagine everybody kind of approached it a little differently, right?
Yeah, like one of my first bands that was really fast and grindy. Like there was the bassist, and I reminded me a lot of the bassist from Capitalist Casualties, and the drummer. Like we're so locked in, and it's so tight. Like there's a lot of really cool, energetic bands from that era, but they were just super proficient, and
I'm obsessed with fast stuff, and I also don't play any instruments, but like I'm always just like, the faster the better. And I think about the different drum styles, and I'm like, when something's like ultra tight, like Discordance Axis, but then I'm like, I also like the complete, I don't know if it's the opposite end of that, but like sticky, where it's just like, or the Neos, where it's like also fast, but it's like just completely ready to go absolutely off the rails. It like it's like
on the edge of that.
Yeah, I love it. So,
all right, Tony, bring it on home. It's the last pick of the day. Make it count.
All right, I'm gonna dumb it down hard.
Pressure's on you. Dumb it down. Is that possible?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I was gonna break out the single too. Oh no, here it is. This is what I've mostly been listening to, which is the Simpletones. This is a collection of their comp tracks, and also there's a little cheating. I wasn't listening to the 7-inch, but we have the 7-inch here too.
Yeah.
But yeah, and yep, just some completely idiotic California punk that's like somewhere between the first Angry Samoans and maybe a little bit like the Descendants also, but like only the dumbest aspects of like those things, put together or whatever. Yeah, I just really have a soft spot for like ultra simplistic, like just dumb punk. Yeah, and I think that way about the Angry Samoans especially, but like the Simpletones are just another band that's like, I mean, I have a date, I guess like, semi-famously covered by the Vandals at some point and had a music video for it on MTV. But their version is pretty great. But I think that I like drugs.
I like drugs. Yeah. They get me high. Oh, so high.
I mean, it's just so great. It's so great that as a 50-year-old lifelong straight edge person, it's like, do I want to do drugs? Like, this song is so fun. They make drugs sound so much fun on this record. I'm like, can I just blame it on the Simpletones? Can I just do that? Just super, just like the vocal style is like one step above just talking, which is also another thing that I'm super fond of. The first Angry Samoans record where it's like, something like Carson Girls, right? Like right there in Mike's hand. It's just like, he's basically just speaking the words. Like, it's like, how do you even do that? I love it. And Simpletones really seem like they're just one step above that, like, ultra fun, simplistic, just talking vocal style that I love. So,
yeah. When you were talking about how bands will never kind of capture that like 80s metal thing again, I think the same thing about that era of California punk, because it's like these bands who are writing super accessible songs but recording them like not exactly lo-fi, but in a very sort of like stark and simple way. And it's like if bands were writing songs like that in the 90s, they would have gotten production that sounded like 90s California punk. You can't get that
wrong, which is not what you right. It's like, I don't like that. Yeah, this is like, years before that, and it's just like, I don't know how the child abuse single. I know there's there's mentioning here about the pre-Simpletones band. I've never heard that, but there is the post one called The Clan, and that single is on but it's just the same. It's like just super ridiculous. Like who put that out? The same label that did like there's like a Circle Jerk single and the Clan single, a Posh Boy maybe. I think single. Okay,
and
Posh Boy,
Adolescence Amoeba single. They all
kind of look the same. They have like the same design style, but it's just I've thought about it before in like the various bands I've been in, or like times where I'm like, I want to start a band and I just want to sound like, the dumbest, like Metal Mike, like Angry Samoans, Simpletones style of vocals. It's actually incredibly hard. I don't know if it's just because like you feel self-conscious. It's just very difficult to attempt to sing, in that style. It's just hard. Like, I want to, but I feel like as somebody that doesn't do drugs and isn't, drunk, or like maybe that would allow me to do it if I was like,
I feel like the accent is a big part of it for those California bands too. They all have that like drawl, man. Like, you hear it in the music.
Absolutely. I find it to be currently at least unreproducible to like attempt a band like that, but I just wish somebody would.
There's one band
I would do it if anybody wanted to do it, but the problem is, right, is like everything I want to do, it's like I want it to be more and more simple and stupid. But like any person that like already knows how to play their instruments does not want to sound like, you know, if you're lucky, maybe they want to sound like, you know, Back from Samoa. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Trying to get them to like write a song like Carson Girls is like, no one that knows how to play even one chord wants to write that kind of music. But it's like in my heart, like that's what I want to do, or I want someone else to do that. Like somebody has to do that currently. So like,
I was going to bring up that band Kiteri, but it's totally different. It's that Finnish band that's just put out that real like back to basics, simple, super catchy. But that's kind of a different thing, really.
Yeah.
But,
well, I want to check that out though. So
there's this band called that. The closest band I've heard to nailing that SoCal thing, there's this band called SoCal's Parishioners.
Okay.
Who just have like, they have 2 tapes, but like they sound exactly like all this stuff.
Oh,
like,
wow. Okay, that's awesome.
Simple songs with a little bit of melody. Like it's very like early Social Distortion, Simpletones, Beach Boulevard comp, and like the recordings are mega raw. They get the closest I've heard, I think.
I gotta check that out for sure. I'll write that down.
All right. Damn, that was a good episode. I had such a good time. I hope everyone watching did too. It was so good. So many good records. So many good stories. A little bit of like interweaving between our like choices. And I think I'm going to end this episode on this quote. Is it Jeff, right? He wrote down below. And I'll leave the viewers to decide whether he's talking about us or the records we chose. That's your homework to decide what he's talking about. So thanks for tuning in. It's a great episode. I've got to announce next week's show. Bill Chamberlain's coming back on. He's like almost like a co-host. Bill, and I know that he's going to have a pile of records that are just coming from England on a trip from London. So he's going to be showing a lot of records that he's been bought in from London. Sean Henderson from California and Jay Collins from Rival Records is coming on the show next week. So tune in at the same time, 10 p.m. EDT, Friday night. So what's the date? May 26th, right? So let's see you all then. Thanks for tuning in. Until next Friday. We're going to stay on a little bit. Right, guys? We're going to stay on a little bit and have a little after show for the
hear about the Acrostix,
for the Patreon viewers. the uncut, the behind the scenes footage.
It's like the OnlyFans version.
You can sell it.
the Patreon. It's for the Patreon subscribers.
Yeah. Big bucks. That's where the big bucks are. Yeah.
PG-13.
All right. Until next time, stay healthy and stay clean.